Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I'm here with another edition of HP Chats. And today's HP Chats is going to be all about Ron. So basically in my Cursed Child video, I talked a little bit about why I didn't like Ron in Cursed Child. Specifically the fact that I felt he was more movie Ron than book Ron, which prompted someone to ask me to talk about what I think the differences are between movie Ron and book Ron. So that's why you're here. Movie Ron versus book Ron. Let's talk it out. Let's see why they're different, because I think that they're extremely different, and actually one of the things that annoys me the most about the Harry Potter movies is the portrayal of Ron Weasley. First, let's talk about what we know about Ron Weasley as a character and what really makes him wonderful in the books. So I think one of the first things that's important about Ron Weasley is that he is the character that's in the know. Of the trio, he is the one that was raised in the wizarding world, he knows all of the rules, and he's the person who fills them in on all these rules. Ron can sort of be an exposition kind of character. He's the one who explains stuff when the other two were completely lost. And of course, Hermione integrates herself fairly quickly. She knows what's going on, but there are a lot of little things that Ron knows a lot about because he grew up in the world and Hermione didn't. For example, like the tales of Beedle the Bard. Hermione and Harry don't have any idea what that is, and Ron does, because he was raised as a wizard. So Ron is in the know, he provides a lot of background information. That's a big thing for him. Additionally, something else about Ron is that he tends to be the purveyor of common sense. Hermione and Harry have a tendency to fly off the handle, do something crazy when someone makes them angry. Hermione's a very ruthless character, so even though that doesn't quite sound like her, it is. If someone makes her mad, if someone offends her, then she can be quite an aggressive person. She tends to panic, especially in earlier books. If there's a stressful situation, she tends to overthink that situation, and Ron is sort of the voice of reason. He says the most obvious answer, and he keeps kind of the coolest head of the three of them when they're in a dangerous situation, and that's a really, really useful thing to have. Ron, of course, is also funny. Definitely, he's funny. He is witty, he is smart, and he uses his jokes for specific reasons. He doesn't just make jokes. He's there to make jokes because he wants to lighten the mood the way he knows how. Sometimes he doesn't know how to help in a situation, so he makes a joke. He helps make the situation feel lighter, and that's a huge important role also for a character to have. And the last thing, Ron in general, he is brave, he is incredibly protective of those he loves. Ron meets Harry and goes, you are my family now, that's it, you're gonna come to family parties, I'm gonna make sure my mom gets you Christmas presents, I'm gonna stay here for Christmas. Once Ron decides you are part of his group, that is it. You are part of his family, and he is protective to the extreme over you. And that's just, like, what a guy, what a sweetheart. I just love him. What I wanted to talk about next is the balance in general, because the trio is a balance, and each person brings something that possibly the other two lack. Hermione's obviously the smart of the group. She brings the intelligence. She's smart. That's what we know her for. So obviously Hermione is intelligent. She does have a lot more to her than intelligence, but that is one of the main things that she brings. Harry and Ron are smart in different ways, but Hermione brings the hardcore book smarts intelligence. As far as Harry goes, Harry is supremely charismatic. He is the leader of the group. Where Ron and Hermione are less willing to step forward in situations, Harry is the one who steps forward and brings people in. He's a clear-born leader, even if he doesn't want to be. And that is a big thing for Harry. And Ron, I would say, is sort of the heart of the trio, which is kind of an overlooked but essential thing. Like I said, he's extremely protective. He makes sure that Harry and Hermione keep their heads in intense situations. He tries to calm them down when they're getting too stressed. He tries to be an ear for Harry when Harry's having a difficult time. Ron is just sort of the gooey, sentimental thing that holds all of them together. Basically, I think the way to compare movie Ron to book Ron is to talk about some very, very specific scenes in which Ron's character was changed just terribly. Ugh. So I looked up a lot of examples of this, and because people have talked about this before, and I thought I would talk about the best examples that people have brought up, because these are brought up frequently. And the first issue is the Devil's Snare scene in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, book 1. What happens is that they're going through and they're trying to find the Sorcerer's Stone, and they get trapped in Devil's Snare. And in the book, Hermione freaks out. She's completely panicked, she doesn't know what to do, she doesn't remember how she's going to get them out of the situation. And she's yelling, and finally she remembers, okay, I need to have light. And her immediate thing is to go to saying, where's wood? I can make a fire. And Ron is the cool head that prevails that says, are you a witch or not? You don't need wood to make light. And that is the reason that Hermione remembers, oh yeah, I can make light with my wand. They get out. Compare this version to the version in the movies. So in the movie, again, caught in Devil's Snare, and Hermione is the one who kind of mellows out. She gets through, and Ron and Harry spend the entire scene screaming and yelling, and they have no idea what's going on until Hermione, cool-headed, prevails and goes, here you go, I'll get you out of the situation because I'm super smart. And Harry says, it was all Hermione, that's the reason we got out. So, in one version, Ron is kind of the cool head that helps them get out of the situation, and in the other, it's all Hermione. That's kind of a theme. So let's move on to the next scene. The next scene is a scene that involves Snape, and it is a classroom scene, and basically Snape keeps picking on people in the class, and Hermione keeps answering the questions that he asks. At the end of the scene, Snape takes points from Gryffindor and calls Hermione an insufferable know-it-all. Now in the book, Ron immediately defends her. He says, hey, you were asking her a question, she was just answering, and he gets points taken away also. In the book, he tells Hermione, he's kind of right, you know, which just doesn't sound like him at all, clearly, since that's exactly the opposite of what he says in the books, but okay. So another big scene that I think changes Ron as a character is a scene in Prisoner of Azkaban, and it's the scene when they find Sirius in the Shrieking Shack. Ron's leg is broken, and in the books, Harry's standing up to him, and Ron stands up on a broken leg, which clearly the book says is not doing well for him, and he says, if you want to kill Harry, you're gonna have to go through us. Compared to in the movie, Ron sits cowering in the background on his broken leg, which I completely understand. You know, if you have a broken leg, you don't have to stand up and say anything. But he stays back there cowering with his broken leg, and Hermione's the one who steps forward and says, if you want to kill Harry, you're gonna have to go through us. There are a lot of other moments in the books that I think establish this. For example, a lot of times in the movies, Ron's exposition gets given to Hermione, like the explanation of what a mudblood is, the explanation of what being a Parseltongue means. Those are all given to Hermione instead of Ron, who explains them in the books, because part of his character is that he's the character in the know. So he explained them, but instead Hermione gets those lines. And another kind of just general thing about the movies is, in the books, he tends to show a little bit more appreciation and acknowledgement that Hermione's a really intelligent character, and that just comes up less in the movies. He's much more prone to making fun of her and teasing her for this stuff. That's just kind of like a small general thing. I don't have a specific example. But let's move into why this all is, why this has all changed. And I think what it boils down to is that you cannot talk about movie Ron versus book Ron if you're not going to talk about movie Hermione versus book Hermione. Because as you saw in a lot of these scenes, Ron's lines or general emotion in a scene were given to Hermione. Hermione was extremely favored in the movies. She was given a lot more lines, and she became a perfect version of herself, which is not what I ever wanted, because I don't want a perfect Hermione. The reason Hermione was interesting was because of all of her faults as well. But those were kind of all taken away. She took all of Ron's good stuff, all of her good stuff, and all the bad stuff just kind of disappeared. In the books, she tends to be a lot more self-conscious, and a lot of this is because, obviously, Emma Watson grew up to be Emma Watson, so, you know, there wasn't a lot of getting around that. But she's a lot less self-conscious. In the books, that is a huge thing for her, and it plagues her for a long time. Also, they make her much more personable in the movies. She gets along with people a lot better. In the books, she really doesn't. That's a big thing. She doesn't get along with other people very well, and she gets along with Harry and Ron, but they also get kind of annoyed with her because she goes a little intense sometimes, and I think some of that intensity was dialed back. She's a much more emotional person in the books. She cries pretty frequently, which isn't a bad thing, but she does do it. She panics a lot, especially in earlier books, and she doesn't always know 100% how to deal with Harry and his emotions. She tries to, but she tends to say the wrong thing, and Ron has to jump in with a joke to hopefully settle the situation. And the thing is, if you establish early on that Ron's character is this person who only makes jokes and that's all he's there for, it just lessens the emotional impact through the movies. When Ron left in Deathly Hallows in the books, it was a huge shock, just because we've been shown for so long that yes, Harry does love Hermione, but Ron is his best friend. Ron is his emotional balance. He's the person who's always there, which is why Ron leaving was such a huge deal. And I think in the movies, this just had less of an impact because we haven't gotten to see the heart of Ron as much throughout the movies. And what I decided when I was writing out all of my notes for this video is that the thing I can boil it all down to, what I think is the true issue with movie Ron versus book Ron, besides all of his lines being given to Hermione obviously, is that in the books, he makes the jokes. He is the person who is there to lighten the mood, and in the movies, he is the butt of the joke, and he's only there for comic relief. And I think that that is a huge difference in character, and I think that that tends to be why Ron gets kind of a bad rap. Those are the differences that I note between movie Ron and book Ron. I'm sure that you probably have some too. Let me know how you feel about this in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!